Hello and welcome to Calculus with Lauren from Luminaries and Fireflies. I am an artist and an educator. Today I'm concentrating on just doing a quick little video about derivatives and just doing some practice problems using the derivative formula. After this I'm going to get into using the different rules to make derivatives a little easier for you. So this is just the very beginning of calculus. So for some practice problems, just going to go over the formula. F prime of x, or the derivative of f of x, which is a function, equals the limit of h approaching 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. F of x just being your function, and then f of x plus h just being, instead of x, you put x plus h in place of that. So let's do some quick examples. Formula is up here, so you can always have the access to it. So our first function, so example number 1, is f of x equals 4x squared plus 2x minus 1. So that's your f of x in this formula here. Your f of x plus h, you're just putting x plus h in place of x into that formula right here. So it'll be 4 times x plus h squared instead of x plus 2 times x plus h, all minus 1. Okay, now let's plug this into the formula. So we have f prime of x equals f of x plus h, so 4 times x plus h squared plus 2 times x plus h minus 1. And then you also have to subtract f of x. So f of x is right up here. So minus parentheses 4x squared plus 2x minus 1. Parentheses are because this negative in front is going to affect every single part of your function, because it'll be negative times 4x squared, negative times 2x, and negative times negative 1. And all of this will be set over h. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is kind of simplify things. So we have 4 times x plus h squared plus, we can go ahead and distribute this 2 in. So let's go ahead and do that. So 2 times x is 2x, 2 times h is plus 2h minus 1. And then I'm going to carry this negative out. So negative times the 4x squared would be minus 4x squared. Negative times plus 2x is minus 2x. Negative times negative 1 would be plus 1 instead. And then all of this is going to be over h. The only thing I haven't simplified in here is your x plus h squared here. So let's go ahead and do that so we can change that. So 4 times x plus h squared. X plus h squared is the same thing as x plus h times x plus h. How do you simplify that? Well, you just FOIL. So these are factors, so you'll just do x times x times h times x, and then h times h. So x times x is x squared, x times h is plus xh, h times x is plus xh again, h times h is plus h squared. So to simplify that, these two terms are the same, so you have two of them. So you'll have x squared plus 2xh plus h squared in this case. So let's go ahead and throw that in there. So we'll have 4 times that, which is x squared plus 2xh plus h squared, plus 2x plus 2h minus 1 minus 4x squared minus 2x plus 1 all over h. Okay. So I don't know if you've noticed yet, but there's a lot of similar terms in here that can be simplified. So we have our 2x here and a negative 2x here. So what's 2x minus 2x? 0. And then negative 1 and a positive 1 here would mean negative 1 plus 1, which would make it just 0 again. To the front here, when you distribute this 4, it will change each term as well. So let's go do that on the other side. So we have 4 times x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. When I multiply 4 in here, it's going to be 4x squared plus 8xh plus 4h squared. And then bringing the rest of the terms over, our 2x canceled, our negative 1 canceled, our negative 2x, and our 1 canceled. So we're left with plus 2h and minus 4x squared. So plus 2h and minus 4x squared. 4x squared minus 4x squared cancels. And remember, we're all over h at all times. Alright. So, if you look at each of these terms that we have left, every single one of them has an h. So we can actually divide h out in this case. 8xh divided by h would cancel that h. 4h squared, 2 h's divided by an h would be just h. So you're going to be left with 4h. 2h divided by h is just going to be plus 2. And that looks so much more simple, doesn't it? Okay. So going back to the original formula, f prime of x equals the limit as h approaches 0 of 8x plus 4h plus 2. H approaching 0 just means plug in h for 0 in this case. So this right here would be 0. Do you know what 4 times 0 is? 0. So that means your f prime of x, as the limit approaches 0 for h, it equals 8x plus 2. And there's the derivative. From here you can find a tangent line equation, or you could find different slopes, because the f prime of x equals your slope of your tangent line at any point x. So let's say in this case x equals 5. So if I want to find the slope at x equals 5, I would just plug it into your f prime of x formula. So if I did that, we'd have f prime of 5 in this case equals 8 times 5 plus 2 instead of x, which would equal 8 times 5 is 40 plus 2, which is 42. And you can use this to find the slope at any x. You can plug in x is 55, 22, negative 6, whatever it would be, even 0. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to a second example. I'm just going to do 3 examples on this video. So our second example, we haven't done a trigonometry problem yet, so let's go ahead and do a simple one. This is in terms of f of x equals sine of x plus 3. Using this formula to find the derivative, let's find the derivative. So the derivative of f of x equals f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So f of x plus h in this situation is going to be sine of x plus h plus 3. Okay? So the derivative is sine x plus h plus 3, and then you have to subtract f of x. So minus parentheses sine of x plus 3. All of that is over h. So if we first can do, the only simplification we can do is just carrying this along. So we have sine of x plus h plus 3 minus sine of x minus 3 all over h. Our 3's cancel the plus and the minus. And then we're left with sine of x plus h minus sine of x. So this is when we have to go to our trigonometry terms, which I'm going to paste over here on our right side. Okay, so it's over there on the right side. So sine of x plus h equals sine x cosine h plus cosine x sine h. This would just take its place. Yes, it's very long, but this would just take the place of sine of x plus h right here. So if we did that, we'd have sine x cosine h plus cosine x sine h minus sine x all over h. So the only things in here that we have any similarities would be we have a sine x here and a sine x here. So I'm going to put these two dudes together on the left side. So we're going to have sine of x cosine of h minus sine of x plus cosine x sine h, and then everything is over h. So I'm going to separate them. Here I can take a sine x out, but I'm going to go ahead and move this to the other side. So taking a sine out, so you're taking it out this way, outside of the parentheses, so you'll have sine x times cosine h minus 1 divided by h plus cosine x sine h over h. Now, at the beginning of this it said f prime of x equals the limit of h approaching 0. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in h is 0 in this case. So, as you can see, I posted this over here on this side, which are two important rules for limits when it comes to trigonometry for sine and cosine. I'll make more videos about limits in the future, but for now I just kind of wanted to get some derivatives done because that's my favorite part of calculus. So sine of x times the limit of h approaching 0 just for where you have h's. So cosine h minus 1 over h. To change the signs to look like this, I could just take a negative out. So it would make it negative cosine and positive 1. Same thing as that one. Plus cosine x times the limit of h approaching 0 of sine h over h. And as you can see, sine t over sine t, or sine h over sine h. This is the same as 1. This one is the same as 0. Anything times 0 is 0, plus cosine x times 1. So that means our function, our f of prime of x, equals cosine x. Alright. And then for those that are familiar with cosine and sine graphs, they're pretty much just little curvies that go up and down between 1 and negative 1 forever. But to find the different slopes at different points, you would just plug in numbers for x, and so if it was x at 1, x at 2, you plug it in, you could find the slope of that graph at any one of those curved points. So now we're going to do our last example for today. For example 3, f of x equals 4x plus 1 over x minus 2, using the same formula that we've been using. An important thing to realize whenever you have a x on the bottom, you can never have 0 on the denominator. That does not exist. It's undefined. So how would we be able to determine what x's are possible in this? Well, you'll find the domain. So the domain just tells us what parts of the function where x exists or doesn't exist. So we can't have x minus 2 equals 0 at the bottom, so that means x is not able to equal 2. So x cannot equal 2 for our domain. Alright, and then to actually plug this in and work it with the function, we're finding f prime of x The beginning of it, as usual, is just f of x plus h. So you'll just do 4 times x plus h plus 1 all over x plus h minus 2. And then you subtract f of x from that. So you'll have 4x plus 1 over x minus 2 all over h. So when you have two fractions here, we have to find a common denominator. There's nothing similar about these, and I can't separate anything particularly, so I'll multiply them by themselves. So this side would be missing this, so this will multiply by x plus h minus 2 over x plus h minus 2. This side I can multiply by x minus 2 over x minus 2. I know there's a lot of fractions involved, but it'll be over soon. So I'm going to write everything in the parentheses. So we have 4 times x plus h plus 1 times x minus 2 minus parentheses 4x plus 1 times x plus h minus 2 on here. So minus this whole top part, and then this whole top part's on the other side right here. Okay. And then it'll be divided by the same thing. That common denominator is now x plus h minus 2 times x minus 2. And then it's divided by h. When you divide a fraction by something, it's just the same as multiplying it by its reciprocal, so 1 over h. So I actually can go ahead and just put the h right here and get rid of this division sign, because it's just multiplied by 1 over h. The first thing I would do is go ahead and multiply this 4 in, leaving us with 4x plus 4h plus 1 times x minus 2 minus 4x plus 1 times x plus h minus 2 all over. Lots of mumbo jumbo here. So this is now, there's going to be a bunch of different multiplications, so I'm going to separate things out in parts. So I'm going to take this first section here before the negative and do it on this other side here. So right now we have 4x plus 4h plus 1, and I have to multiply it by x minus 2. To do so, x has to multiply by each of these three terms, and so does negative 2. So x times 4x is 4x squared. X times 4h is plus 4xh. X times 1 is plus x. And then you have to multiply the negative 2 in. So negative 2 times 4x is negative 8x. Negative 2 times 4h is negative 8h. And negative 2 times plus 1 is negative 2. So that's our first part. I'm going to go ahead and now multiply our second part. So I'm going to do a little line here. Our second part is minus, so 4x plus 1. And I have to multiply that into x plus h minus 2. That means 4x needs to multiply by every single three terms, and so does 1. So I have 4x squared. 4x times h is plus 4xh. 4x times negative 2 is negative 8x. And then I have 1 times x plus x. 1 times h plus h. 1 times negative 2 minus 2. Okay. Those actually look very similar, don't they? So I'm going to take this first part, that's number 1, and this is the second part, number 2. And then now I'm going to subtract, so I'm changing the terms or the signs for every single part here. Which means I'll have minus 4x squared, minus 4xh, plus 8x, minus x, minus h, and plus 2. Looking at everything they have in common, I have a negative 4x squared and a positive, so I'm going to cancel those out. I have a plus 4xh and a minus 4xh. I have a plus x and a minus x, right there and right there. I have a negative 8x and a positive 8x. I have a negative 8h. Do you see anything else? No. And then I have minus 2 and a plus 2. So those will also cancel. That leaves me with very small amount of things. So I have a negative 8h minus h all over. So I'll have a negative 8 divided by h, which is negative 8. H divided by h is 1, so negative 8 minus 1, which equals negative. Okay, so 0 for all of our h's. It would just be this h right here. So you're left with negative 9 over x plus 0 minus 2, so x minus 2 times x minus 2, which is just x minus 2 squared. So negative 9 over x minus 2 squared, and our domain x cannot equal 2. Okay, so those are our last 3 examples for today. I'm going to go ahead and be moving into derivatives using the power rule, the quotient rule, and then the chain rule, etc. So if you need more videos about this or want me to do some extra problems, just go ahead and put some little comments in if you have any questions, or if you're having trouble with some problems that you're doing on your homework and you need somebody to show you, just let me know. So thank you for watching until next time, and you can always find me at Luminaries and Fireflies on Instagram, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Calculus with Lauren.